Their quarantine behind them, passengers from the Diamond Princess have been disembarking in their hundreds. Many of them taken by bus to the middle of Yokohama with mixed emotions about their shared ordeal.
Every day I would worry that I was going to test positive. When the number of people getting infected spiked, we knew there were secondary infections, so I was afraid to leave my cabin.
The crew members did very well, so I was grateful to them.
The passengers were then allowed to continue their journeys home, sharing public transport with fellow Japanese who have mixed emotions of their own.
I feel so sorry for them. It's a good idea to release them. They were going to get sick.
Foreign countries say they're quarantining the people for a certain time, so I want Japan to do the same.
The confirmed deaths of 2 elderly passengers have raised concerns for those still on board, and for foreign governments who are still arranging to fly home their citizens but insisting they undergo further quarantine. Still, Japan is standing by its decision to end the quarantine of the cruise ship.
The ship does not compare to a hospital. We are working there with temporary measures. We have a basic standard, but various issues there have been pointed out every day. We keep correcting these issues on a daily basis.
With cases being reported across Japan, this outbreak is causing increased disruption. Public events have been scaled back or cancelled, including an annual birthday celebration for the emperor. And there are growing fears, if this goes on, about the possible impact on the upcoming Summer Olympics in Tokyo. A passing cruise liner sounds its horn in a show of support for the Diamond Princess. For Japan, finally resolving this crisis is a priority, and it knows the world is watching. It has to be borne in mind that of all the people who have been confirmed to be carrying the virus, who have been infected, a good number of them have had very mild symptoms or indeed haven't shown any symptoms of cough or fever at all. But it's also worth bearing in mind that with the spread of the disease throughout this ship, of all of the thousands of people who came on board all of those weeks ago, now roughly around 1 in 6, despite all of the precautions, despite the quarantine, have gradually been infected, which is a pretty grim ratio.
Rob, many thanks. Let's talk now to Mary Louise McLaws. She's a World Health Organization advisor and a professor of epidemiology at the University of New South Wales. She joins us from Sydney. Welcome to the News Hour here on Al Jazeera. We're talking now about South Korea, China, Japan at the front line of the fight against the coronavirus. What do you make of how the authorities in those countries are handling this?
Look, at the last meeting that we had, the face-to-face meeting for the roadmap for coronavirus, we were reminded to always include ethics about anything that we do, be it the epidemiology, the infection control, vaccines, etc. And what concerns me is that as an epidemiologist, we really value quarantining. It's a very effective method of trying to put a halt to an outbreak. However, it has to be done very ethically and very safely, and you don't put a lot of susceptible people together and hope that they're going to remain uninfected without an awful lot of education of those susceptibles, and also without very, very rigorous cleaning of high-touch areas. So I'm concerned about why 1 in 6, as you've reported, have acquired COVID-19 while they were under quarantining. Now, some of them may have been incubating just before they were quarantined. However, a lot of them may not have been. So really, we really can't put people in quarantine unless we keep them safe.
Why is it, therefore, if you've got that right, and of course you have, why is it, therefore, that the authorities are going so far but not going further? It seems to me that what you're actually doing then is turning the ship into a massive breeding chamber. And if the authorities in Beijing, for example, or South Korea are telling people to self-quarantine with their families, then you're turning their apartments or their houses into a big petri dish.
Look, it's very difficult because humans like the contact of other human beings. So it's very difficult to put them in quarantining by themselves. And some families do need to be together. The other problem is, so I'm sounding very critical of the ship, and certainly I would be very concerned about their cleaning methods. They're teaching them how to use a mask properly with clean hands, how to take the mask off and have a new mask every time they have to wear a mask, and to keep the passageways, which are sometimes a little stuffy for internal cabins. They have to be all very clean. But when we ask people to stay at home, it's probably the kindest place because they're very familiar there. But we still need to teach them how to disinfect and rigorously clean bathrooms and high-touch areas in case one of them is incubating it. Now, one of your reporters mentioned that the majority of cases are mild, and that's what is coming out from the data of China, that 80% are mild. But what's also coming out recently is that the period of infectivity seems to be much sooner than it was in SARS. So people are mild, but also infectious very early on. So it could also be a driver for a lot of the infection of either clusters in families or clusters on ships as well.
You mentioned SARS there. In effect, it was Mother Nature that did for SARS, because SARS as a virus didn't like the way the weather developed around and in those SARS-related countries. Could this happen? Could that happen with the coronavirus?
Yes. Look, I was very fortunate to look at the data and find out what was going on with SARS, both in Beijing and in Hong Kong. And both countries did an amazing job trying to put in place infection control measures. But Mother Nature also played a part. So after SARS, a scientist did a study in a laboratory to find that SARS didn't much like warmer weather or increased humidity. So as soon as it started to become May in 2003, the numbers started dropping. So it could have been a combination of both excellent infection control, but also Mother Nature helping as well. So although I don't want to wish for any climate change issue happening in China, one really hopes that the temperature will start to increase so that they can be helped along with this massive challenge that they have.
OK, Mary Louise McLaws there in Australia. Thank you very much.